Hello everyone. It is a special day when you see that there's another Shori slideshow on YouTube. That's how you know that I have something important to talk about. Today we're going to be going over how to actually climb. Now before you come after me and tell me that this presentation looks terrible, keep in mind I have not been in university for about 2 years at this point, and I have made one presentation in that entire time, and I have already recorded that and uploaded it once. But today we're going to be talking about how to actually climb in League of Legends, because I think that there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of misunderstandings that people just don't quite get when it comes to how to actually climb in this game. It is very simple, and people kind of know about it, but they don't actually do it properly, right? Before we get into the video though, some of you might not know who I am, and I am a challenger mid laner. I have gotten challenger playing mid lane, I've gotten master tier on every role, grandmaster playing AD carry, and challenger playing support. So I have a decent amount of experience. I've done a lot of coaching, private coaching, and competitive coaching, especially in the Polish league. I have been there 3 splits now, and we have won once and gotten second place twice. So I have a decent amount of experience when it comes to coaching and how people improve at the game. Let's get into it. First thing that I want to say that's very important: understand and limit your champion pool. So the first question that you should be asking yourself when you decide what champions you want to play: what champions am I good at, right? So we all have subjective ways of playing the game and different understandings of the game and how the game should be played. And that complements different styles of champions, right? Some players are incredibly good at playing mechanically intensive champions because their hands are just built by the heavens, by God himself. So they can play champions like Katarina and Yasuo and perform very, very well on them. Other players, like yours truly here, our hands are very decrepit, they don't function properly, and they are very inaccurate. So we have to resolve to playing champions that are not very mechanically intensive, very simple, extremely obnoxious to play against, and not reliant on mechanics at all. So the easiest way to check this out is you go to your OPGG, just like I've done for myself here. This was my account where I got Challenger on, and you look at the champions, and you're like, okay, what do I have a good win rate on? Ahri, Tristana, Cho'Gath, and Gragas. What do those champions have in common? They push and they do not interact with the enemy laner unless the enemy laner wants to fight you. That is it. So it seems that that is the style I am very good at. So that is the style I should play if I want to climb. However, it is also important to ask yourself, well, what champions do I actually enjoy playing? Because if I hate my life playing Cho'Gath and Gragas and Ahri mid lane, then I'm not going to enjoy playing League of Legends, and I'm not going to put in the time that is required to get better. At the end of the day, it is a game. You might want to get better at it, right? You definitely want to get better, but it has to be enjoyable. Otherwise, you're not going to find yourself queuing up consistently and actually playing the game. So there's a compromise between champions that I enjoy playing and champions that I'm good at, right? Important to understand that. Once you have your pool of champions that you enjoy playing and are good at, you can start narrowing it down, right? Maybe you have 5 champions, maybe you have 8 champions. Now what I want you to do is I want you to select 1 or 2 champions that are blind pickable. These champions are going to be the main part of your roster. These are going to be the champions that you just lock in and you don't really care that much about the matchup. You can make magic happen in any matchup. For me, this champion is Ahri and this champion is Gragas. I can play that in basically any matchup that I want to. So those are my 2 champions. Next, select 1 champion that you bring in as a counter pick. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I have for that, but this is a champion that when you see your matchup mid lane or you see the enemy team composition, you're like, this champion would do phenomenal here. Mine personally is Kassadin. That is the champion that I pick when I see the enemy mid lane matchup, I see the enemy team composition, and they're full AP, and I'm like, I'm going to 1v9 this game. This is a free win. And I slam the Kassadin, right? Before we get into the actual examples though, I do want to say, if you do enjoy the content, please hit a subscribe, hit the like, and comment what you think about this format down below. And also check out the Patreon, and if you want coaching from me personally, you can message me on Discord. It's down in the description below. But let us get into the matchups, the drafting. So, say that I'm in draft here, right? My team has picked Aatrox, Ashe, and Jarvan. The enemy team has picked Ezreal, Karthus, Veigar, and Ornn. The champion that I will always lock in here, because I see the mid matchup, I see that the enemy team has a bunch of AP, so I know that my champion can do a lot of damage. The champion that I would pick here is Kassadin. Now, your special counterpick champion might be stylistically different from Kassadin. It might require other matchups in the mid lane, for example. Maybe your counterpick is Malphite. Well, in that case, you need to see that the enemy mid laner is AD and they have a lot of AD on their team. Maybe your mid lane counterpick is an anti-dive champ. Go check out the video that I just released that archetypes all champions. Maybe it's Cassiopeia, maybe it's Talia. Well, in that case, you need to see that the enemy champion mid lane is something like an Akali and a Sylas, and that they have a diving jungler, and now you can pick this champion. What really matters here is just your champion. When their conditions are met in the draft, you are very confident slamming that champion and very confident that you're going to be performing well on that champion. Outside of that, don't pick anything else. Play those 3 champions. 4 if you really want to add another champion that maybe is an AD mid laner if you don't have any already, but it's not required. You can add 1 more champion if you want to. But try to keep it at 4. It's very important because mastery over these champions is what is going to carry you to higher MMRs. It is what is going to allow you to focus on the actual fundamental aspects of the game instead of you trying to learn the 20th champion by playing it 4 times. That's not going to be helpful. I'd rather have you play 20 games of 1 champion, right? All to say, different draft example. Let's say we're here, right? Enemy team has picked Aatrox Aphelios. My team has picked Ezreal and Bel'Veth. What should I lock in here? Can I lock in Kassadin? Well, absolutely not. Why not? Because I don't see the enemy mid lane matchup. I'm not going to blind pick Kassadin. That would be stupid. So I need to reach into my bag of champions and pick a blind pickable champion. Which blind pickable champion do I perform the best on? Ahri. Cool, let me slam Ahri here then. That's fine. It doesn't have to be deeper than that in draft. If you see the matchup and you know it's a good for your champion, you pick your counter pick. Otherwise, pick your blind pick, and then you go. Now, there are other options here, by the way. You can play something like an Orianna, because you know that Orianna is stylistically very good against Aphelios or a Siggs or something like that. But I'll release a video on that in the future, like when it comes down to actual drafting, and I think that's super interesting to talk about as well. But let's move on. Limit the amount of games you play. People play way too many games of League. You should only be playing around 3 to 4 games a day. Now, I'm not your dad. I'm not gonna tell you, hey son, sit down, only play 4 games of League of Legends a day, and I need you to hit your daily quota. But there's a limit to how much you can focus and play quality games. You cannot tell me with a straight face that you can sit and slam 8 games of solo queue in a row, and the 8th game is as high quality as the 2nd or the 1st game. It's just not possible. You require too much thinking during the game. You're gonna get exhausted. So, after your 3 to 4 games, you still have that itch. You still want to play League. I still want to crush some players, right? Switch accounts. Hop on a Smurf account. Play some normal games. You can still play the game, but do it in a different environment. Either not ranked or either on a different account. Now, what I want you to do with these 3 to 4 games, focus on practicing. Have a very specific idea in mind of something that you are trying to practice. These games are your practice games. They are where you try to improve. You do not care about winning. What matters the most here is you fall in love with the process of improving, the process of practicing. So here you pick a concept that you want to work on. Maybe you have a coach. Maybe they've told you, hey man, you need to work on your CSing in the laning phase. And that is strictly what you focus on. You strictly focus on CSing properly in laning phase. Maybe they've told you, hey man, you need to work on your spacing, so pay a little bit more attention to the enemy champion during the laning phase. Cool. Maybe they've told you you need to work on collecting resources properly during the mid game. Nice. Or maybe you've come to this conclusion yourself by reviewing VODs, which is also why it's very important to review VODs, because that gives you information on what you need to improve on. The number one information or a thing that I would give you is I would say focus on collecting information on the map. That is probably the biggest error I see at the lower end of the ladder, all the way up to even Master Tier. People are just not aware of what is going on in the game, so it is very hard to make decisions. Let me give you some examples. Here's a clip of me playing Wei, and what we want to do here is we want to pay attention to the map, and we want to track where people are on the map, right? So let's look at the map. Ahri is mid lane, Jax is top lane, Fiddlesticks is bot lane. Who is unaccounted for? The enemy bot lane. What does that mean? Well, that means that either the enemy bot lane is running mid lane, which is very unlikely, or no one is going to be around mid lane. What does this mean? Well, this means I can now play very, very aggressively in the laning phase and play very, very far up, knowing that I cannot get ganked. If I don't see the Fiddlesticks bot lane there, for example, I cannot walk up very far in the lane out of threat of dying. And this concept matters a lot during the mid game. Notice on the map who you can see, and then think about who you can't see and where they might be and who can show up in your lane, right? All of a sudden, if you're side laning, if you're playing far under the enemy tower mid lane, and then all of a sudden the enemy jungler goes missing and the enemy support goes missing, you can probably assume that they might be running towards mid lane, so you need to back off. But look at the map and use the information available to you to make an informed decision on how you should play and who could be in the mid lane. Very important concept. Here's another example where I'm playing Azir, and again, let's keep track of the map. Who do I see on the map? That's right, no one. What does that mean? That means there could be 5 players running towards me mid lane here. And as we see, Viego ends up showing up mid lane. There's an Echo mid lane as well. The enemy support is here too. All of this information I can deduce because I see no one on the map, and I can play accordingly. Instead of walking up when I don't see anyone on the map, I'm just gonna back off and wait until I see players on the map, and then I feel comfortable walking up. Now I have a lot of information, so now I'm like, okay, now I can actually step up. I know that I can't get caught off guard now, and it ends up working out quite well. And the next one is focus on factors that you can actually control, because in solo queue, the only thing that you can control is how you respond to a play or how you decide to play. Your teammates will do their best job to test your mental and try to absolutely grief you, and there's nothing you can do about it. People will do the most egregious things in solo queue. As an example, let's look at a game that I played the other day. I played Aurelion Sol mid lane. What do you think this Master Yi is about to do? I'm sure he's about to go for a very good game. Oh, he died to the enemy mid laner at level 3. And let's look at this hacker. Maybe he's gonna go for a good play. I'm sure I can do a lot here. Oh, he died to the enemy mid laner at level 4 and then proceeded to missing ping me because I couldn't do anything. That is what you're gonna have to deal with in solo queue, and that's what's gonna happen. People will inch you, people will make bad plays, but at the end of the day, all you should do is say, my jungler is so fucking bad, and then move on. Immediately move on. There's nothing you can do about it anymore, right? You cannot take back the horrible play your jungler made, so focus on what you can do from this position, and focus on improving that. Focus on getting a better position in the game. Stop being sad about your teammates playing bad and focus on factors you can actually control. Because over the span of 1,000 games, that one game your jungler inted isn't going to matter. What's going to matter is your response to your jungler inting over the duration of those 1,000 games. You are the only consistent factor over the span of 1,000 games. No one else. So only focus on what you can actually do in the game. And that should make yourself feel at least a little better when your jungler decides to run it under tower at level 3 and give the enemy lane a double buffs in a counter pick matchup. Right? Next. Never back down, never what? Never give up. And solo queue, never give up. Players throw so frequently. You're not playing against professionals. You're playing against little Timmy that's coming home from 3rd grade and locking in his Yasuo, and locking in his Draven, wanting to have some fun, and he's gonna int. Players int all the time. Players throw all the time. This is your enemies in solo queue. They just throw. They MLB pitchers, man. They just decide to throw games like that. Games that are completely won, they will throw. So that's why you should never give up. Don't say never give up because you're like, well, I mean, Maggie Felix told me that. Say never give up because there's a very high likelihood that the enemy is going to throw, so not giving up is going to end up resulting in a positive outcome during the span of your solo queue career. Because a lot of throws will happen, a lot of losses will turn into wins, right? If you do not give up and you do not FF. Your teammates will FF, your teammates will vote to FF, they will spam the chat, they will play Club Penguin Social Club and decide to type little type razor gamers, and all you do is you say, let me mute those guys. I don't need that. I need to focus on the game and see what I can do to actually make the game better. And that's very important, because that is going to allow you to turn so many of those losses into wins. And now, that's going to mean you climb faster. Players will always throw. It is very important to understand. Even if you fall behind, it is very easy to come back because you're playing against players that do not know how to close out games. All the way up to Challenger. You know what our thing was when we bootcamped in Korea back in Season 9? We said never say never on Korea because the amount of throws that happened. We would say never FF on this server, never FF, because the enemy team can always throw. They will always find a way to lose. And do you know how many games that actually happened in? It was absurd. You get so many more wins if you just actually dial in and try to focus on the game and don't give up, right? Very important. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, like I said, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this format, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.